right, so they're seeing this, and I've got a 2 minute start, so we're just a little late tonight. Oh well.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, and if you sound a little icky, oh well, there's nothing I can. I mean, you sound all right to me. I don't think they can hear us. Only 20 people on a Friday night. Jesus Christ. All right. I usually say hi to everybody.
That's fine.
I got a minute left. Let me get more coffee. Timer off. Oh, they can hear me? No shit. That's hilarious. All right, well, good evening. I had no idea you could hear me. I think it's funny. Hi, Jackie. Hey, sweetheart. As much as I try to be professional, there's always something that happens. Always, always, always. I had
Like,
no
like,
special video. Well, we've got a lot of people with us. Hello,
oh,
McFarlane and
interesting.
Christine, McFarlane Jeffrey, and Gary Ballard, and Kim, and Matt. Hi, Matt from New Zealand. And Christopher Spabbins, Rich Diana, who's trying to eat more tuna, he says. He needs the mercury. And Field B. And we have a full house. Bella and Tom Hall, sweetheart. Hello, and Old Sage Joe. All right, well, let's go. Let's get going. Jackie, how the hell are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here.
It is. It's great. We had a
Yeah.
few little sound snafus, but I think it's going to be all right.
All right.
So,
You hear me all right?
I can hear you. I hope they
All right.
can. I hope they can. It's all right. Tell
They'll
us
let you know,
about
I'm sure.
you. Tell us about you, and how many years have we been trying to do this, my
I don't
dear?
know. Well, we had that lovely lunch together.
2017.
Yeah, we've known it. Well, let me see. I've
Yeah.
known you online
Oh
for
God.
probably 7,
2015.
8 years now.
15.
You know,
When I
really?
joined CCAC, Concerned Citizens of Allegheny County. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know how we
Time
found each
flies.
other, but we did. And everybody's saying
Yeah.
greetings to you, my dear. And this is
Oh,
awesome
that's
because
very sweet of them. Yeah.
she's the bomb. And I'm going to let you talk about your background and who you are. And I'm going to shut up. I said hi to everybody out there. Patty's with us and Scott Andrew. We're getting everybody's field bee. Everybody's
Uh,
joining. So
well,
who the hell
well,
are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Hey, the reason why I'm doing this is I've known about, as you can see, all the gray hair. I'm a gray head. And I've known about the seriousness of global warming since 1972. It was taught in
Shit.
my eighth grade junior high school class. Sister Helene, no less, a Catholic
Really?
school. Yeah, yeah. And
They
then
don't do
the
that
following
now.
lesson was on evolution, and she actually handled that pretty well. And then the following year, she and another nun were pushed out. But and then with college, I learned even more, and I was studying the environmental sciences. And let me see. I never took. I always knew to stay away from geography
Sound.
sound.
Okay. We're good. We just
Pardon?
had a little we just had a little burp. Say that again.
Okay. Well, what was I saying?
It's all right.
Through college, soil scientist, and
Yes.
worked at the health department. I never took any fossil fuel jobs because I knew. And for years, I just continued in my little specialty of soils and then wetlands and then agriculture or back to agriculture, depending on how you look at it. And but it was I guess in the late 90s was when I suspected, it was happening with the 1997, 98 El Nino. Do you remember that year?
Oh,
Or the
97, 98. I was living off Lake
how freaking
Erie.
hot it was?
E-
Pardon?
I was living, but that was when I was living in Erie County. And
Okay.
I was living right off the lake back then, and we got, but I was up on the cliffs. You know the how in,
Yeah, the
when
bluffs.
you go
Yeah.
down. Yes, that's where I was. So we got some hellacious snow. But honey, if you're gonna ask me if I remember a heat wave, I'd have to think about it. I probably do because then I was riding my
Well, that's the
motorcycle.
problem. Everyone works indoors now. I work outside. I was dying. I remember in July getting the crew together at like, 5
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
in the
Jeez.
morning, well, uh, so we could get an early quit, because it was just so stinking hot. And I remember almost fainting at around noontime. It was so hot.
Holy
So,
crap.
yeah, and that was 1998. And then George Bush came along, and I think it was in about 2005. I had a small dinner party, and it was in November, and it was outside. We actually
Yeah.
grilled outside in Western Pennsylvania, up in the snow belt, and and that was remarkable. And one of our guests, who he was an assistant dean at the a grad school in Pittsburgh, at
Yeah.
Pitt. He asked me. Uh, he asked me if global warming was reversible, and I thought it was such an odd question because he was in business. He was with the Cat School of Business,
Okay.
uh, and but he did a lot of consulting work for IBM and AT&T and NOAA, and um, uh, some defense work and things like that. And so I thought the question strange, and I gave it some thought, and I said, "Well, I think it should. If we allow the
Yeah.
trees to grow,
Yeah.
and if enough time passes, it
We'll have a little of this. You're breaking up,
should."
Jackie. I don't know why.
No, how's
No,
this?
it's the internet connection. Just keep going. I'll tell you. Everybody understands live.
Okay, all right.
If I start
So,
going like this, there's something wrong. Okay.
well, I
Uh,
asked him, why he asked, because that's not his specialty, and he told me this bizarre story that
yeah.
I just kind of discounted. I thought, hey, maybe Jim's getting kind of old, um, maybe early dementia, who knows? But he told me that
Jeez.
he
Oh
became
God.
aware of this group of government scientists that had found that climate change was irreversible, and that they were super alarmed, and they took their all their
Oh.
information to the administrators,
Yeah.
and the information was a rebellion of scientists within NOAA and NASA and wherever. And like I said, I thought that was the most bizarre story. I mean, next
Holy
thing, I
crap.
kind of expected him to be telling me that the FBI was looking for him. I mean, I just thought it was such a strange
Oh, you're
story.
shitting me.
So I put it
Wow.
in the back burner. But then in January, 2 months later, in the middle of January, my pansies were blooming, and I saw that, and it just like, whoa, you know, like
Yeah.
something's going on here, and it's really serious. I better check into it. What Jim said. And that just started me down this long rabbit hole of taking courses all over again, reintroducing myself to metric, stuff like that.
Yeah, you've been in
And
the rabbit hole a long time.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Uh,
You have quite a
so
resume
that's
too.
oh, thank you.
I could
I
show
worked
it.
through.
I mean, she has
I
I
worked.
have it pulled up. It's insane and she's got a resume.
Yeah, well, I worked
Whew.
my way through those universities. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and it was hard. It was hard. Um, but uh, so I realized that I had been in denial, not so much of the science, but had assumed, in spite of everything I was seeing in the newspaper, that the government was doing something about it. You know,
Yeah,
and
like we
then
all did. Right.
yeah, I mean, like you think the government, like oh my god, like everyone knows how bad it's going to be. Surely they must be doing something. In spite of the politics and the headlines.
Surely
But
they
yeah,
must
yeah.
be. They. Yeah. They.
So that was yeah. So that was my denial, and I got busy and I worked on Obama's campaign based on his climate rhetoric and uh, ultimately when he was elected and word came out that there was this new fossil fuel technology where methane, it will be cleaner. It will
Oh, all the
transition,
bullshit. Yeah.
transition us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
So, I remember
It's
thinking,
wait, I
I'm
have
going
to
through the
do this.
interview process and everything for this international environmental consulting firm,
Yeah.
and and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think more fossil fuels is going to help, but Obama, he's got the best minds in America, next to him, giving him his advice as scientists, Dr. Chu and everyone. I mean, they're Nobel Prize winners. Um, and
Mm.
compared to little old me. Um,
Oh, little
and so
you.
I took this job, and it was on day two. I should have quit, Sandy. I
Oh
swear.
no.
Um, yeah, we were out in the field, and I saw they were going to cut down. Now, in Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods is, there's very few virgin forests left in
Of
Pennsylvania.
course.
But
There's
but
none.
we were looking at this one down in Washington County. It had to be 150, 200 years old, and they were just going to wipe it out for the well pad and miles of pipeline.
Yeah,
And
Pennsylvania. Ugh,
tell me about it.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. But so in my mind, I think I just said, somehow I'm going to have to stick this out and put in as many, make it as hard as possible for them, and to point out everything that's wrong with the projects or what they're proposing, and not only wrong for us, but for the company I was working for. It's because they're in it with us. Everyone's in this, and they're
Yeah,
yeah,
no shit. We're
yeah,
all in it
yeah.
together.
So
We're all in it together. Well, I'm
right.
looking at you sent me the two documents and we had the four questions, but before we go into talking about where the heck to go, I just, what I wanted to ask you is, if we could talk a little bit about, your experience in disaster management besides, just go through what you
Oh, okay.
did. Yeah, for the Red
Well, after
Cross and how did that happen and
Well, yeah. Well, actually, it was part of that. We were living outside of Pittsburgh. My husband was retiring. We knew that we wanted to move because there was a big ass nuclear power plant we knew was under design for what we were looking at. My husband's a professional engineer, by the way, so we put our
Okay.
heads together and we did a like a climate action plan. And ultimately, we ended up here in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I joined the Red Cross. I had been asked to open a couple chapters for various environmental organizations, but
Yeah.
I decided not to because I've worked with them in the past and they just don't do anything other than, I mean, they,
You mean the big ones, like with the huge mungus in administrative costs, or
yeah,
not
yeah,
little
like the
ones like
ones that,
time?
I haven't donated to World Wildlife Fund in 20 years and I still get junk mail from them with
I
calendars and
know.
stuff.
I know.
I mean, come
I
on.
know.
And they want to give me a little fuzzy, or tote bag, if I send
Well,
them money.
there's a difference in some of them. I mean, there's like, even
Yes, I
though
know,
I
I know.
remember when Corey,
Well, yeah,
what's her name, Morningstar, did her whole thing on it, and she saw that the Environmental Defense Fund, the administrative costs were so high, but they
well, not
are
only that,
primarily hiring
expanses.
lawyers. But they're hiring lawyers, and they're corporate. They're the corporate greenies.
Well, I went through Al Gore's training,
Ah,
and I've met a lot of the science, like Dr. Mann. I know him, and Dr. Jim White. I know these people, and they just won't come out and say how bad it's going to get, and people aren't going to react until they realize that lives are, I mean, like look at Ukraine. Look how long it took for everyone to evacuate. It was when the bombs were dropping.
oh
Um,
my
but
God.
so.
Where's
When
the
I
green
came to
cross?
Erie.
Where's the green cross? That's what Rich Diana wants to know. We're very informal tonight. Where's the green cross? Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Oh, excuse me. Well, I decided that I was going to run to the light and help the disaster victims because at this point, there's going to be disasters and they're going to get
yes.
progressively worse. So I started to deploy for the Red Cross. I have a lot of housing experience too from my time with the health department. So I got involved with doing damage assessments. I've done the derecho up in Iowa that was,
Wow.
horrific. And it was just as bad as the damage I saw with Hurricane Michael, along the Panhandle,
Wow.
Cat 5. And then
Wow.
I've been to Texas a few times for the flooding there, and where else? Georgia, and even Pittsburgh. I've been called back to
All over.
Pittsburgh, for some of they had a microburst there. So I was very relieved that we moved because the locks and dams on the Allegheny, they're not designed there. And I've met with county commissioners about, all this. We're aware of the risks. So that's why we hightailed it out of there. One
Yeah.
of the first,
Yeah.
yeah. So did you want me to like talk about the
Well,
risk analysis
yeah,
sort of
we're going to
thing,
go
or
there. We're going to go
or
there.
the Red Cross, or
We'll go
what?
there.
Okay.
Well, I guess the Red Cross fascinates me, and the work you do. How does it work? They call you up. Is it strictly volunteer? What kind
Well,
of?
they have a group of staff. They have they're almost set up like an organization. They have these really long flow charts. From director on down to
Okay,
the peons setting
the
up the
flow
cots.
charts.
Right.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, but so I filled out an online application and they do a background check
Yeah.
and then I went through online training and classroom training. Started out doing shelter work, and they got me right out the door for Hurricane Michael.
Dang. Wow.
And that was rough. That was a rough
Wow.
deployment. It was like a 50-mile wide tornado just tore up the. I mean, it was just huge, and you could. I mean, all the trees 30 feet up were like just shaved, and people were in shock. I went to for a
Imagine.
small community shelter, which the Red Cross was helping, and we arrived the day after the hurricane, and the Red Cross volunteer that was there, she had been working alone with like 200 people in
Yes.
this community shelter without electricity, without water. without anything for 2 days, and the people were in shock. They had just lost all their homes,
Oh.
and so I spent 2 weeks there, and it was a mess. I mean, we were going taking 5 gallon buckets down to the pond down the road to pick up
Oh,
water to get the toilets flushed for 200 people. I mean, it is, these things are, you know, can get
tragic.
nasty. Yeah, yeah,
Nasty. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
What's the worst?
yeah.
What's the
So,
worst you've seen in your experience? Which is lengthy here. I mean, I'm looking at,
well,
yeah.
I'd say Hurricane Michael in Iowa. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah, Iowa. The derecho was in the
Wow.
summer 20. Yeah, a couple years now.
That was the
And
worst one.
it hit Cedar Rapids. It was a large one. It didn't make all the news like the derecho that hit the Maryland, D.C. area about 10 years ago. It was
Yeah.
like the first time you heard the term derecho, but it
Down.
it, it had about 5 billion in damage.
Mm.
Trees
That's the sad part. The trees.
lost everywhere. So yeah, yeah,
A
the
lot of
people.
a lot of
Yeah,
trees. Oh my gosh. Well, it's interesting to me having
yeah.
not been a volunteer for anything like that. You're putting yourself right there in harm's way.
Right.
And
Well, for deployments, you have to make yourself. Um, you have to be trained for your specialty, whether it be logistics or damage assessments or shelter work or computer stuff, the background stuff,
yeah.
getting people deployed, that sort of thing. Essentially, I have a calendar that I fill out online on their volunteer connection, and I put down that I'm available. Deployments typically last 2 weeks. I've been out for as long as 3 weeks. Yeah,
3 weeks. Yeah.
and uh,
Is your husband a
well, that they
volunteer?
needed. Well, no, not for the Red Cross.
Okay.
He volunteers for the Maritime Museum in town, the flagship Niagara. So yeah, he's the captain at heart. A wannabe captain.
I want to be captain. Jeez, you get me.
We had a sailboat. We had a sailboat. I was raised on Long Island. My dad and stepmother, they had a sailboat.
She was raised in Long
And I
Island,
spent
guys. Long,
yeah, Long Island. Yeah, Long
long.
Island, North Shore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
but Bill, he'd never been on a boat before, a sailboat before. I said, "Hey, let's buy a sailboat." And the fellow that sold us the boat gave us like a 5-minute lesson, and he thinks he almost got us killed a few times, but it was
holy
fun.
crap. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what
Wow.
he does. Stay home and take care of the pets. So
He stays home and takes care of the pets. You're awesome. I'm
right.
telling you, you really are. So, that's right. We have one of our followers is sitting right on the North Shore right now. Bila,
Yeah.
he's taking. Yeah, well, that's not his name, but a friend. Yeah, he's been here to our house for a party. He's
Oh,
had
really?
yeah,
Okay.
in 2018. Weren't you supposed to come to that party? The big party we had. It was like
Uh,
the all the East Coast.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. I remember that. Yeah. If it was in the summer, I bet you I was deployed.
You might have
Uh,
been
yeah.
2018. There was something going on, and I remember because you guys were going to come. You were going to come, but a lot of people did come. That's the last party I gave it. Boy, I can't do that stuff anymore. But all right, I want to go on a little bit from the Red Cross, and because I know we're going to have some soil questions, and I'm putting people. If you have questions, remember to put the Q in front of your question. Um, I want to talk about what it's like to do. You have right here in your professional highlights the routinely conducted deep pit soil and landform investigations, including remediation sites, landfills, proposed oil and gas production sites, including pipelines, in addition to alternate systems evaluations. Tell us about that.
Oh, geez.
That's a lot.
Okay. Well, let me see. Uh, well, let me see. I've worked on Superfund sites, like for like landfills, um, and the like. You have to know how much soil you have to cover.
Yes.
Because when you do a municipal landfill, you dig a big hole, you line it, you put in some trash, and then you put soil, and then more trash, more soil, and there's all these cells. Um, so you have to know how much soil you have and what kind of soil. So, that was my involvement on some of the municipal landfill work. And then on the Superfund sites, um, well, oddly enough, they had me looking for wetlands in a
Really?
Superfund site.
Wetlands
Yeah,
in
it
the
was out in
Superfund.
Ohio.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, it was the Bessie Williams landfill. I guess
Really?
this yeah, it was on the edge of town, out past Akron, I believe. Geez, we're going back a long time now.
Well, it's just that one struck out to
But
me as interesting. That's all. That's all.
well, yeah, 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 it is.
All right.
Um,
Just to get a little
it's
feel for who you are and your background and what you've done, and then we're going to go into the heavy duty stuff that I
right.
outlined. Yeah.
I started with a health department, environmental health, specialist, inspected restaurants, nursing homes, schools, um, on-lot sewage complaints, that sort of thing. So yeah, and then from there, I went to an engineering firm, and became they had me take courses in some of the wetland sciences. I had had some. They got me further prepared. I got into that, along with on-lot sewage disposal and just stream discharge systems, stream work, uh, bugs and
Wow.
bunnies,
So
from
much
there,
stuff.
threatened and endangered species, plants and animals, that sort of thing. So,
Cool.
and even fossil fuel work. So I did that for the 10 months at that international consulting firm that cut down all the trees. Yeah, the older
Oh,
the better, it seems.
oh, awful. Awful. Well, I see the chats. They have everybody's has
Yeah.
questions already about soil. There's already a million questions for
Okay.
you. But
Okay.
I think let me see if there's a question we can do first. Well, of course, but then we're going to go through the places. We're going to go through what we were talking about and what you had written to me, which was the frankly about the risks and
Yeah.
where can people go, people change and go, but I'll do one question. Let's see, that's not going to be too long. Okay, here's one. Rich Diana, one of our very helpful um, members. When did Jackie know WASF? God. When
What's
did you know we were
WASF?
when we were so fucked?
Oh, well, I think yeah, the physics of climate change pretty much makes it irreversible, because I was aware, I knew how bad it was going to be. But then but even then, it wasn't until I got into like Dr. Jim White's work with
Mhm.
the University of Colorado, Abrupt Climate Change. He was one of
Yes.
the authors of the government publication.
I think
Um,
Antonio interviewed him.
yeah, super nice guy.
Yeah.
But and I'm pleased to say my niece is going to the University of Colorado. I told her to look him up.
Oh, look up
But
Jennifer too.
oh, okay. But yeah, I but it was when I was at that international consulting firm. I remember talking to everyone saying, I think we're really fucked. I think we're really fucked, and I would explain why. and they'd come back with the answer and would debate this.
Mm.
But it wasn't until someone had mailed me, I forget who, mailed me Dr. McPherson's book.
Oh, really?
Guy
That's how a
McPherson.
lot of yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't read the book. I read where I was like, holy shit, this is what I've been saying for the last this is for years now.
Oh
And to
my
see
God.
that he had came to the same conclusion, and it was Christmas Day too. So so
Did you
I
get like
just read this.
goosebumps? Holy crap.
Well, then from there we had to go to my cousin's house, and I was so upset. I was crying. I kept crying, and I was walking up to people saying, "But you don't understand, like we're fucked."
Oh my
They must
God.
have thought I was totally crazy. But yeah,
No,
that's I think
the
when it
sane
really
one.
hit. Yeah, and it took me years to put the barriers back up around my heart again so I could just function. It was really rough there for me. I was crying all the time. A tornado would hit a school, I'd just start to, you know, bawl. And
Oh my God.
I have kids,
Oh, me
we
too.
total five, three adopted, two biological, and
Yes,
they're
beautiful people. Beautiful people. Oh, we're
yeah,
having a
years.
little bit of a lag. All right. You're a beautiful person. You've adopted children. Uh let's go to now we have there were five topics that I think everybody read in the show notes about location and let's go through those. I have them in front of me. You're talking about how to make a decision there at uh how to make a decision for somebody that's
Well,
looking at this.
okay. Well, well, I was doing all the climate research around 2005 or so. I came across a paper that actually it was referred by my brother-in-law, Terry. He pointed out this paper. It was on climate, and it had been commissioned by Andrew Martin.
Andrew Martin.
He
Okay.
was Schoelles. Remember him? He was a real
Everybody have patience. Our internet's a little
hawk.
wonky. Yeah.
All right. Well, in this report, it said that the near future habitable zone, the southern edge would be the Mason-Dixon line, and about 400 miles back from the ocean. So that was my starting point, because
Okay.
I know enough government scientists to know they're
Yeah.
really sharp, you know, and they
Yeah.
know they don't put this in writing unless they really have it down. So that
Wow.
precluded. I mean, so that excluded the South, the Midwest, the West. So it was pretty easy. The Northeast essentially, and then the second check on my checklist was the distance from nuclear power plants because they're not designed for what's here. So I looked at the soil contamination after Fukushima, and it spread
Wow.
50 miles out. So I wanted to double that because I figured, well, if there's one going, there's probably two,
Wow.
when things get
Really?
really bad. So yeah, so I
Ooh.
figured, well, let me double that to like 100 miles, but I couldn't find any place that had the other taxes. But Erie was close. It's 80 miles to the Perry plant in
When did
Ohio,
you move to
and
Erie? When did you move to Erie?
in 2018.
Yeah, I remember
2018.
the move and I
Yeah.
remember you telling me about why and how. I remember this. This is
I
cool. Yeah.
already told you all the and I mean the other
Yeah.
things on my checklist were potable water. What? Hey, we're on the Great Lakes, good water source. Public water supplies, or good potable water,
Mm-hmm.
supplies,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. That's how I focused in, and then we went and visited these places. We went into New York. We've been up to Maine. We're still looking in case we need a plan B. Like
Plan B,
who
C,
knows?
D, you know?
Uh,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
God.
exactly. So we still keep, going up north. And yeah, last fall we went out to Wisconsin. So I just finished reading a book. I should have brought it down here. How to Prepare for Climate Change by Paul. It's a new book. It's only a couple years
Okay.
old, but in it he put the number one book to as Madison, Madison, Wisconsin, and so I got in touch with him and I things, Madison. He just said, "Whoa, you are way ahead of me." um, but
You did.
I look up his book to really dig into the details. So
Hey, you could be
it's
my
how to
booking
prepare
agent.
for climate
You know so many people. Help me. How to prepare for climate change. I'll have to find that, put it in the show notes. I mean, I don't know how all of us out here who's preparing, I mean, prepping, I prep, but there's a lot of different connotations to what preparing is. I mean, if you live in a place
Yes,
that
exactly,
like
exactly. Well,
Elliot,
I
you
think
you
people have to
follow on
look at the
Twitter.
risks around them.
Hmm. Do you follow Elliot on Twitter in Santa
Actually,
Barbara?
pardon?
And there's a guy I interviewed him, Elliot Jacobson on Twitter, and he was just saying that Santa Barbara's weather was like 96 degrees right now in April, and that people are just not, they're walking around not paying attention to what's going on, and he's calculating methane. He's doing all this. It's yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sheepies, I guess, or I don't know. I don't know.
Scary.
Um, Yeah, but there's some other you're right, when it comes to preparing for climate change, he goes into the types of homes, simple things around the homes. Like when I was deployed for the Red Cross, I saw down in Florida the homes that had hardy board were pretty much undamaged in many cases.
What
They
are
may be
what is
missing
it?
floor. It's a cement type siding,
Okay.
and it never needs painted, which is nice. And it's not flimsy like vinyl. It's
Sounds
about
like something
a
I
half.
should put on my house.
Well, we got it. It's horribly expensive, but
Oh, well,
that was
forget
the
that.
deal. That was the deal. I had insisted on either a brick house or something, and he lost us the house I really wanted. So
Oh.
I got my hardy board. So
Mine'll just blow
and it was
away.
terribly expensive, and we don't have a large house, but it was close to 30,000. So and
See, anything
yeah,
that people need that's
yeah.
worthwhile to help them be, safer, you can't nobody it's not in the
Well,
reach of most
the house
people.
we tore down the wood. The house is 100 years old. It would have
Wow.
been $4,000 to paint the house every 4 or 5 years versus having it painted once every
Yeah.
20 years. So right there, there's the savings plus the protection from the wind and such. And then we also bought a generator, a home generator, for the blackouts and the like. It's simple things like that.
Is it a solar
So
generator?
no, no,
No.
we're in the city here, and we're actually we're a couple miles back from the lake, but we face east west, so we don't have good sunlight. Plus, we live on a tree lined street. The
Okay.
trees are about 100, 150 years old here, and they're lovely. So
How about for, because I know with solar generators, you can, you power them at home. You electrically charge them, and then you use the solar
right,
after the, like, the initial, if you can,
right,
you
and you
find
have a
it.
battery backup, right?
Yeah, that,
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would like, but I have a gas, a propane generator also, never hooked it up. It's brand new. I never hooked it up. So it's, and that's a, it
Good.
sits there. Yeah, what's it gonna do, right? But you're,
Right.
you're
And then,
prepping.
well, one other thing when it comes to location and homes, let me see. There's a government publication for every county. It's called the County Soil Survey,
Okay.
and in they have it online, but there's not as much information as the old books from the 70s. But in the
Really?
books, it actually tells you the history of the soil over, tens of thousands of years, and that's what you want. Has it ever flooded in the past, or has it had an earthquake, or
Mm,
when was the last landslide, or things like that.
I
So,
need that.
uh, and so you could tell all that by the soil type, the soil series that's there, whether it's colluvial, alluvial, um, windblown.
Wow. So what have you learned about my
You
area
could tell that.
other than the frackers would love to
Well,
get
I
in
did look
out
at.
here?
Well, it's funny. I looked on the soil survey at your address. I think I have it. Um, um, I think I was able to a long driveway with a little curve at the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I did have
Yeah.
it. Yeah, down is like a gravelly
It's
material,
it's
excessively
shale.
well drained.
Yeah, it's draining right now into my
Well, it could
basement.
be. Well, that's the thing. There's so many voids. Yeah, there's free water flowing in it. Um, uh, we chose this side of Erie rather than the other side of Erie because that's just one big sand dune and outwashes below the
Ah.
surface, sinkholes. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
this
So
is
that was my
cool.
concern there. On the I'm sorry, the western side that has is the olean soil, the sandy soils. Over here, the soils are sandy, but they have a fragipan in it, and brittle hard layer in the soil. It's a chemical reaction, and the soil forms these prisms, three-dimensional prisms, and they're all lined up next to each other. And you
Wow.
could see it in the soil. You dig a deep hole, and you could see it, the face of them. And you can actually see the individual prisms, as you're looking at all the
Wow.
different horizons. Well, that thing, I mean, they're hard and they're brittle. And I figured, well, that might just help prop us up in case, it will stabilize the soil. So that's why we chose the eastern side of Erie
Huh.
versus the western side. So, like little things like that.
Wow. That's so
So,
cool.
yeah,
You should,
yeah.
you could probably write a book on how to choose your apocalypse home. God. Oh,
My favorite Mr. Rogers episode was the underground house from the 80s. I remember watching it with my daughter, you know, 30 years ago. Yeah, but
wow.
he took his crew to an underground house. So,
There are a couple. I pass by two of them when I go to Ithaca,
mhm,
and
mhm,
there are two of them. And I thought
right,
that was
right.
pretty cool. How, I know this is going off a little bit, but when you have an
Oh,
underground
just
house, how,
as an
what?
aside, Sandy, Carl Sagan had his house was a cave. It
Yeah?
was a cave in the gorges. Yeah, I
Oh,
used to see him around
wow.
campus. He sat down at my table, well, lunch together once at Plums in Ithaca, but he um, uh, on one of the cliff faces, there was a cave that he turned into a home, and he had steps and
No
yeah, that he
kidding.
would go down. Yeah,
So interesting. Holy
yeah, yeah,
crap.
yeah.
Huh.
But I'm sorry, you were saying that was an
No,
aside.
I lost my train of thought because now you got me onto Carl Sagan and sitting there, and he had really neat, really cool. All right. Well,
And
we
like
had,
six wives too.
The
He was a
what?
womanizer. A
He
womanizer
was?
from what I Oh, yeah, yeah, he checked me out once while I was walking down the
Sexy mama, you. But back then, maybe it was a little more like stupid, ridiculous. Well, I was an investigator. So, I mean, I was an internal investigator at my campus for our research foundation. So, I've investigated my share of sexual harassment claims.
Oh, I don't
And
think there was any of that. I mean, well, all
oh,
science
back
and
then,
math and everything, very male dominated. But I didn't hear anything funny untold about him. He just liked women, and that's what you know.
they all, yeah, they all do. Okay, so let me go, I wanna go back. So we've talked about the location, and, you also talked about, you talked about the area where we are, or Ithaca, how people are moving there. And I saw the other day, and I couldn't replicate it. I couldn't find it. It was a map that was graphical, and it was showing how people are exited. They're leaving and where they're going from California, and it was splintering out where everybody's going, especially from
Yeah,
California,
right, right. Yeah, yeah, they're going into Idaho, and yeah, yeah,
pushing all the
yeah, but
prices up.
right,
Mm.
right. Why, what I don't understand is how people can still be moving to like Florida and Texas, and I mean, even Elon Musk. I mean, he opens a big factory in
Cheap taxes, who knows?
Texas.
My daughter's moving to Georgia
Yeah,
at
but
the 21st, but she always knows she can come here. Shit hits the fan. She's got, who knows what'll hit here.
I know. Yeah.
It's
Well,
terrible to have to think like this.
another reason I was in Vermont, and I have a family still in Pittsburgh, and
Hmm.
I thought, well, they could walk from Pittsburgh to Erie here probably within a week.
A week? Okay. So we got to all get in shape to
Yeah,
walk if
I
we
know that,
have to walk.
like, they're gonna stop for their, further north to Vermont. So, yeah, I even
Okay.
thought about that, which is, but
Vermont is nice.
yeah.
That's where Guy McPherson is. He's in Vermont now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
he ended up
follow him really anymore.
Well,
Yeah,
he ended up
yeah.
there. So, okay. So let's move on. And I know you were trying to tell Antonio to get the hell out of North Carolina. Oh, I don't know if he will or not, but all right. And then the nuclear plants and the spent fuel cells, like we have West Valley, which is not
Hmm.
that far, right? And what is that in Cattaraugus? Is West Valley in Cattaraugus?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I
that's a
don't know.
problem because they don't know what the hell to do with those drums. So it's about living, how far. What is you did okay, I see the research on Fukushima, so it was 50 miles out from the plant. So you said 75 to 100 miles? What do you think?
Well, I tried for 100 miles, and I mean, I guess I could have found 100 miles, but it would have been, far away from either food supplies or in the middle of a forest or, just other things. So, so you have to evaluate, how it's a compromise. You're not going to check all the boxes. So,
No, there is no
um,
way to check all the boxes.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
even the billionaires aren't checking all the boxes.
Oh, they're buying
Billionaires.
islands. Oh my
Yeah, the
God.
mutants that are gonna survive if they survive,
Yeah, on an island. Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, Antonio's convinced that there's going to be some survivability, but he's 28. He has a thought that there will be some enclaves, and I think, yeah, if they are, they're going to be those
Yeah,
billionaires. What losers anyway?
well, there will be. I mean, this isn't going to happen in a year or two
It's
unless we go
gradual.
nuclear. Yeah, it's gradual. So yeah, remember that extinction doesn't happen like this. First,
Right.
extirpation occurs. Where they're um, uh, the climbers to the point where the populations are isolated. They're no longer exerting a force upon their niche, and
Yeah.
so they could be functionally extinct. There's after that there's functional extinction, then finally extinction. But yeah, there will be some enclaves for a while.
For a
So
while. Ooh, boy.
yeah.
It's chilling. It is chilling. All right. And then you were talking, so we've gone over this. And then and the wind. Nobody thinks about that. When
Mm.
the wind where you're living that could bring potential contamination.
Yes, yeah. So you also want to be on the or the western side of a plant rather than the eastern side because we're in the prevailing westerlies.
Okay.
If you follow, yeah.
That's interesting. Now that would be fun to have you back on with Nicholas Humphrey.
Yeah.
The me
Yes,
our
because I'm not
yeah, cuz he's going to get his
sure. So,
PhD in disaster
yeah,
planning. So
you're right,
you're going to have to come back. Mhm.
right. Yes, I've sent him
Well,
money too. But
we'll
the
figure
I've
out your
noticed that.
internet too a little bit to make sure that it's not notchy.
Yeah, well, my son is coming home he's home from the Coast Guard this weekend for a week, so I'll have him deal with my computer. Um, but I've noticed that our fronts are coming from the south now more often. So
Ooh,
I could tell that from my allergies,
changed.
because
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Changed.
yeah. So yeah.
All right. So then we moved on from wind. Let's go to the water supplies. Good quality water, well
Hmm.
managed. All right. So you talked quite a bit about this. Let's hear about water.
Water. Okay. What about it?
Well, you had said,
Potable water. What kind
good
of water?
quality,
Potable, good water.
potable, well
Right.
managed water company, if public. Does the plant or home have a good
Okay.
filtration?
Okay. Mm,
That's
right.
old pipes, wastewater. This is important.
Yeah, well, when I was living in Ithaca, we had sulfur water, and it was horrible. So if you're not on public water supplies, be sure to turn on when you're looking at a home. Check turn on the water and check the flow and also the smell. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then let me see. You also want to look into undermining and the state of the streams in general in your area.
Undermining.
And
Mm.
yeah, and another reason why I chose Erie County, there's no fracking up here.
Yeah,
We're in the Marcellus Shale, so I didn't have that concern. And I checked
I do.
into the county water authority, and they have a really state of the art system, reverse osmosis, the whole 9 yards. Um, so so I'm pleased with the water situation up here. And we also have the Amish for
Me too.
non-fossil fuel, yeah, food supplies, and there's enough farmers and
Although they use them, I mean, right up the street, my two neighbors, they both are using fossil fuels to build the things they're building out
I
of wood. So
I
they've changed, but they would if they
and
had to. They
yeah.
can adapt right back.
Yes, it depends on their bishop. The bishop kind of sets the rules. In New Wilmington, when I was living, we had a house for many years. Uh, they were very strict, and so their houses did not have, telephones or electricity. But I did
Yeah, they
notice
don't
there
here
was
either.
a log mill that did have a steam powered saw, big one, old fashioned one. So some of them do use
Okay.
electricity. Yeah.
Yeah, not many. Where I am, there are my Amish neighbors are other than what they do for their business. If they're building, they're not. I mean, they have outhouses. There's no electricity. It's always pitch black. I mean, I'm friends with them.
Mhm.
I'm teaching my neighbor Jonathan about climate change slowly but surely. And it's, he
Hmm. There you
they
go.
get their information. They get their information somewhere. I mean, they're not completely, in the dark.
Well, they do
It's
have
just
schools,
they're
they do send their children to school.
yeah,
So
they have little schools, right? Not public schools here. They've got their own little schools. They
yeah,
just built a new one right up the road,
right.
and it's so cute to see the horse and
Uh-huh.
buggies there. I
Right,
love going
right.
to one my
Yeah.
one neighbor, his kids, when I go over there, and his kids are so sweet because they give me the sawdust and I use the sawdust and I used it in my outhouse, and the little girls were helping me shovel it in my bags because I recycle the bags for mulch and stuff. They're so cute, so sweet. I asked them if they wanted to adopt a grandma. Shit hits the fan. I need a new family. I have none. Oh, jeez.
They are sweet.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, they are. I mean,
yeah.
I watch how they treat animals, though. I go over and I make sure when I stop by both, everybody that has animals, I ask about, I haven't seen a lot of abuse, but there have been arrests around, the counties for neglect, and I think a
Huh.
lot of that was, at least here, I think it's been stopped, but I couldn't tell you for sure. I couldn't.
Well, I'm surprised. Yeah. We had a housekeeper, uh, Ada, who was Amish,
Yeah.
and she was so proud. She got a new horse. She after she got the job, she went out and bought a new filly, and I asked her how it was, and she was like, "Ooh, ooh," very excited. Um, but yeah, the horse had a lot of energy, and from what
Oh,
I've
horses
saw
are
in
beautiful.
Wilmington, and it was an Amish enclave. No issues, but the Amish weren't particularly well thought of in town. So when I did hear something about them, about how they treated animals, I kind of had to discount it because of the bias against them.
It could be. I was just looking at the data that was available on animal mistreatment when I first moved here in CCAC. It was something I was
Okay,
interested in. I've been
right.
pretty much interested in getting rid of puppy mills and all that kind of stuff. That used to be a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, why don't they do something about farmers then? I mean, if you saw a farmer treat their animals,
Oh, I
how
know
the
it's
calves
not
are
just the
separated
Amish.
from the
It's
cows,
horrible.
yeah, at birth and put into hutches and they're fed
That's
formula, and I
horrible.
mean,
When I
it's just
drive by a farm and I see those, I have to drive like this. And I don't even want to go
it's
out. I
sad.
don't even want to see.
Yeah.
I think that meat eating and basically for me is mostly over. I mean, I'm still vegetarian, eggs and some dairy, but I'm cutting even that out. It's been a process,
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
actually went to the grocery store the other day for the first time. I haven't been out to a grocery store since February because I have enough food, and
Wow.
yeah, I did really well with my prepping abilities this year. I didn't
Wow.
have to leave much
Oh my
at
God.
all. No, I'm pretty
Huh.
good out here, but I'm alone too doing it. and but I have people
Yeah.
that help.
Yeah.
They come over and help me.
Right.
Um, but anyway, let's go on. See, you're sitting here with us, and Jackie and I are shooting the shit like we would do if we were sitting. We really are. All right.
It's
So
fun,
you
Sandy.
what? Yeah, it
Is there
is. It's
anyone left watching?
yes, there are. There's 54 people with us on a Friday night, which is cool. I wish it was 154 or
Oh,
254, but I'm happy with what with our I love our followers. Um, okay, so you also talked about wildfires and expanses of forest in the area within 100 miles, especially to the west. Now, I wanted to tell you one thing I saw today. I had to go out, and I drove by in Belmont, which is the county seat here, and on the
Mhm.
fire department they had a big sign: "No burning." From April to like mid May. And I was really surprised because shit, people burn all over the place here. They burn whatever they want in their fire pits. I have a pit,
Huh.
and I don't like to. I like to recycle all of my cardboard. I don't want to burn it up. Some people, do. But why do you think that is? Do you have any idea? Are we in any kind of, because it's rained for consecutive years?
Well, we were in like we were dry. I don't think we were in
We were
a
in a drought before 2 years, I think.
yeah. And
Last year.
I know here in Erie, we didn't have any snow this past December. I mean, not one snowflake in
Not
December.
one snowflake?
Not one, not
Really?
one. Yeah, and
Holy
I've been
shit.
coming up to Erie since the 90s. I was a consulting soil scientist for the health department up here. So I would come up here and I mean, the ice isn't freezing like it used to on
Oh
the
no.
lake.
Oh
It
no.
seems like. Um,
No.
but I've only been living here for 4 years. The rest, were just day
You
trips
don't
or a week stay for at a site or whatever. But
you don't
yeah.
remember when the college kids from UB decided to go to Canada on the lake thinking it was frozen? Like, oh, Lake Erie always freezes, which it doesn't, and they died.
No. When was that?
That was maybe it was a long time ago. It had to be when I was still living, maybe, with my first husband. Oh, I just
Wow.
had to bring this back. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a while because maybe 2003, 4. It was like it was
Oh wow.
so traumatic for everybody. Uh, just traumatic. I have a question for you. Do you can you talk a little bit about, with all of your experience, what you see is collapse, and that we are, do you see environmental collapse? How do you see it? How would you articulate that in your experience?
Oh geez. Well, yeah. There's not as much life as there used to be, except for humans. There's too many humans, and yeah. I, I could tell, particularly from the trees and from the birds, that I don't see as many birds, migratory birds flying now, and even around the house. And um, in
Oh God.
in the summer, we were down in Lewis, Delaware, and
Oh, that's where
uh,
my
you know,
my 20-year boss lives, in Lewes, Delaware. Ted.
okay, well,
Oh,
interesting spot. Take the kids down for there, and so it was 2011, and I didn't see not one herring gull. Now, understand that the herring gull is like the pigeons of the Atlantic. I mean, they're just everywhere on the Atlantic, and I didn't see one, not one
wow.
all week, not one. And we had stopped at the nature center to see a something to take the kids in, and I asked one of the naturalists there, and she hadn't even noticed. And
Hadn't
uh
even noticed.
I
How
know, I
is
think,
that?
yeah, an entire,
All my bird friends have
yeah.
noticed. I'm not a birder, but even I've noticed.
And then the
Ay,
trees are
ay, ay.
dying,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I've
that's
noticed that a lot of the trees that people think are still alive are actually just covered with vines. So they may look
uh
green, but there's an awful lot of dead trees out there, and I hadn't realized how bad
here.
New York was getting until we traveled up to Alexandria Bay last summer, and it was spooky. Even my husband, who's pretty stoic about these things,
Mhm.
I could tell he was like looking at the trees as we're driving along, and they were all dead. I mean, it
Oh,
was like
it's it,
something
it's
out of like the
awful.
Twilight Zone.
It is, Jackie. It's like that
I know,
here.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
making videos about this. Well, when I started doing this, was what, 2015, 16. But really, I have videos when I was doing Facebook more of the trees. I was freaking out and getting out of my car and walking around and videoing what I
yeah.
saw. And it is disconcerting, and even here, the trees are, and what
Mhm.
kills me is they're so skinny, and then I see them now. I can't talk. I burn wood to heat, and all right. I like to make
They're
my
already
field
dead.
goals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, but
There's a lot of
they're
dead
cutting
trees
them down. They're cutting them down.
that
But I had, you know, what we had the tornado here. Remember that? So I heated my house for
right.
3 years with that. But I see the trees are so skinny. I don't see the big old growth trees here in this county. You know,
Hmm.
and that scares me too, but I
Right.
think they took them. I think the Amish took them. There's a lumber mill in town. I think they took them, and I'm not sure how much rewilding is going on, but I think that's a
Yeah.
topic I'd like to bring up when we get back together with our environmental group here.
When we were down in Salamanca last summer,
Yeah.
we were to the casino, and before going in, I happened to look around at the mountains, and the um, uh, the die off rate was 50% at least. I so I use my eyes. I've been trained to evaluate like the percents of this or that in a particular space.
Sure.
Um, so it was about 50% dead.
That's
So,
that's
and that's
disconcerting.
all kindling. We're another reason for the hardy board was so, yeah,
Wow. Wow. All right, Jackie, I'm going to get to some questions. We have a
sure.
good happy chat. You know, well, happy. Happy. We're talking about ecological collapse and I think there was one Midas Lisa, you still with us, right? Okay, I hope. How to improve our soils, she asks. And I don't know if we can talk about that locally, globally. I mean, how do you improve soil? I know how I had to do it in my garden. I have to compost the shit out of everything and I have to actually bring outside,
Yeah.
I bring nutrients in, but I try to do it. What do you think?
Well, your soil may not be nutrient poor. There are some simple tests that most state universities will provide for a minimal fee, and you could check like the pH, et cetera, and like maybe for $20, you could send them a sample, and they'll tell you the amount of nutrients in the soil. The nitrogen, potassium,
Oh, I'd like to do
that
that.
sort of thing. Yeah,
Okay.
and they'll also tell you what's lacking. If and some will even tell you like if you want to grow. These labs are meant for farmers. They'll tell you how much if you want to raise corn or fruit trees or whatever. They'll tell you what you should
I have Cornell
add to
Cooperative
your
here.
area.
Yeah, I
There
have
you go.
Cornell here.
Good school.
So
Yeah.
basically, Rich Diana, then it leads to his question is how bad is our soil now? Well, in our country, I mean, of course, we are a very geographically diverse country, but what would you say overall to answer, between let's say when you started to now, what kind of changes have you seen in soils?
Well, um, they're warmer. They no longer freeze. That's another reason why we wanted to get out of
They no longer freeze. Wow.
Pittsburgh. I know that. So, um, but as to soil or is now disturbed, whether it be a plow or mining or construction in general, roads, bridges, all that sort of stuff. So they've all been disturbed. So it is important to get organic matter. If there's one thing get your soil and that's get more organic matter into it. So
Yeah,
we save our animal, our waste and our coffee grounds, things like that. We just throw it out in the garden.
me
So
too. Well, I compost it. I have
yeah,
two.
we
I have
never
a
bothered to bury it. We just
composter and I have, all my stuff. But well, you don't have, you live in a neighborhood.
right,
So it's a
right,
little
right.
different.
And
But
we
you
have
actually could
yeah.
compost, but you know more about it than me. So if you say throw your soil, throw all right. That doesn't change the acidity or the pH a lot. I don't know.
um, What, the organic matter
Throwing
or
coffee
the
out like that.
well, the compost actually doesn't have a whole nutrients. It's there more for to give to make the soil kind of fluffy and to for to have a granular structure formed, which is what plants like to grow in. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Oh,
But
I mean,
so
it's
as
been
to
a.
the nutrients,
Hmm.
pardon?
Oh, it's no. I'm just
As
saying
to the
it's been
nu
an experience to learn all this.
mm. As to the nutrients, you don't want to use fertilizers, or if you do, buy organic fertilizers.
Right.
But with some plants, you may need that. If
All
you're
right.
doing corn, you're going to maximize your yield. You're going to need nitrogen anyway.
Nitrogen.
Um,
All right, we missed that a
yeah.
little bit. We're having breaks. I think I don't know what kind of do you have Wi-Fi or do you have hardwired
I have
broadband? Do you have
Wi-Fi.
not broadband?
Maybe I can.
Don't worry about it now.
Okay.
You're coming back. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, it's taken me this long.
Okay.
Let me get. I have another question that is a very important one, and that was Hans. How do you find your motivation? I mean, you do all this work with the Red Cross. You know it's coming. How do you do that? Help us with that.
Oh, geez. I was pretty depressed for a couple years. I mean, I was, but ultimately, I realized that part of that, no it anyway. So,
That what?
so,
Say that
so
again.
that's
Just say it
that's
again.
what kind of gets me. No one gets out of here alive
Okay.
anyway. You
Okay.
know.
Right. I
So,
wish I could.
yeah.
I
So
wish
that
I could
that
play
keeps
that.
me. Yeah, and the rest, what keeps me motivated, to a certain extent, fear, fear for the children, wanting to make a difference. Um,
Oh, that's
but I'm not
interesting.
nearly as active. I'm not nearly as
Fear.
active as I used to be.
You mean
Pardon?
fear drives you? Fear is a motivator to be with the
Oh
Red
my
Cross,
God,
or
yeah, it's much
really
better than
fear?
hope. Hope. Oh my
Fear
God, hope is what hope was what
got us into this
didn't keep us
mess.
out of World War II, or it didn't keep the Russians out of Ukraine, or
Hope.
hope doesn't do anything. Yeah, so
No,
fear is a good motivator. And it got us to
that's
move.
interesting.
It
Yeah.
got us to move. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's confronting our fear in collapse, and that's what a lot of people are doing now. They're discussing this. Jordan Perry's in our chat. His wife, I've interviewed Karen. She's doing workshops, and Michael Dowd. There's a lot of people doing workshops now that are trying to
Hmm.
help people. Because of this. So fear is a
Well,
motivator. That's really interesting.
let me tell you
Really
a story.
interesting.
It was let me see. My husband, he was home with he had knee surgery, and he was g- going to be going back to work in a few days, and he'd been sitting around the house for a month. So I said, I have a field appointment. Why don't you come out with me? It will get you out of the house. Now, it had been raining in Pittsburgh like you wouldn't believe. We were having mudslides, roads were closed. I mean,
Wow.
just all this stuff going on. It was 2018 in March. And so we're driving way out in the country, and on this dirt road, and we look up, and uh, in my life, the hillside was moving. It's called soil creep, and it was just slowly moving down
Soil creep. That
the
is
hill.
fearful.
Yeah, it's called soil creep. And normally it's
Oh,
small, but this was like huge. It's not a landslide, landslide boom or a rock slide. It was just slowly creeping down. And my husband saw it, and he got real quiet. I mean,
oh,
I
wow.
could tell that it really. So, so, and we didn't really talk about it that much other than, "Wow, look at that," you
Holy
know?
crap.
But, 2 days later, he went back to work, worked 2 days, came home, said, "Sell the house." And I had been after him for a year
To try to make a change.
or so. Yeah. Well, at this point, I was facing all the thing, and as an engineer, he looks at things a little bit differently. Um, but I think when he saw that soil just slowly creeping down the hillside, it just totally freaked him out, and that's what
Wow. Do you know anything about the new people? Have you heard anything about the neighborhood
promoted.
you left?
Uh, Not really. Well, we're still in touch, but not
I
really.
just wondered if that soil
Uh,
creep is creeping. Jeez.
it's still creeping.
Oh my
Well, it stopped
God.
raining, and they did clean up all the landslides, and the roads were reopened and things like that. But I expect that sort of thing to continue happening. So,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right. We have been an hour and 15 minutes, and I didn't even have
oh
an
wow,
opening video.
okay,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
great. All right. Let's get
Well,
to a
thanks for
couple more
having me, Sandy.
questions. I don't know how come it took so long. I am the biggest procrastinator on the planet. All right. Let's see here. Uh, what does What does the missing 56 metric tons of Midwestern topsoil, even after conservation efforts post Dust Bowl, mean for the current paradigm of petrochemical based agriculture? Oof.
That means more. They need and more fertilizers and more fertilizer. Yeah, yeah. Plus, in the Midwest, in the prairie states, those soils were maintained by fire, and we put out fires now, so they're not getting the additions that they used to. Plus, the buffalo
Wow.
no longer roam, and they're not shitting on the
No,
surface,
there's
adding to.
nothing
So
natural.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, the wind is a big problem there. I mean, they've lost feet of soil. Um, yeah.
So the Midwest is a breadbasket, right?
Yeah, yeah. For now.
Yeah,
For
for
now.
now. Holy crap. All right,
Yeah.
let's see. Where does the cadmium in soil come from?
It's just cadmium is a natural element, so it's everywhere. Um, Oddly enough, I had a soils professor. He taught us soil and water conservation. He took a little bit of cadmium every day.
Oh, really? He
Yeah,
he took it.
yeah,
We're
yeah, yeah.
we're getting
It's
it
like a
from if we're
vitamin. Yeah,
wow. Hmm, interesting. Okay, let's see.
yeah.
Hi, Trish Kaiser. Trish is asking, okay, what's the timeline for collapse in the West? Do you have an inkling for timeline for
That
that?
depends on when the earthquakes start. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I think the already. I mean, if you can't see that, between all the disasters that we're having, it's happening, and
Yeah,
and
that's true.
also the pandemic. That's another form. Another stress on us. Um,
Oh my
so
God. Okay, let's see. How about what are your thoughts on re-wetting former wetlands for carbon capture? Scotland is looking at this, but it's likely we will get more droughts, but it is also seen as a cash cow. Re-wetting former wetlands for carbon capture.
well, well, I've read papers on both sides of this. There was a professor at the University of Ohio. He did a lot of work with using Typholetifolia for cattails
Mhm.
for carbon capture. But then I've also read a lot of articles about how wetlands, you know, and cattails, they produce a
Mhm.
lot of methane. So I'm not. I don't know. I think if for carbon capture,
I mean,
it
is it
won't hurt.
something okay, it won't hurt. But it's not
Yeah.
it's not like, okay, this is going to solve Scotland's problem, and
N
Scotland can say, guess what? We are carbon free because we have. But I mean, it's a beautiful thing to do
No,
because
I
it's
you know, I
natural.
yeah, to use things like that, carbon capture to offset emissions, that will never work because it's always less expensive to keep it out of the atmosphere or the waterways or whatever than it is to try and capture the
Yeah,
pollutants
but that's
back.
business as usual. Yeah, that's bullshit,
Yeah, so
actually.
yeah, so that's why we're
Although,
collapsing.
yeah, I know. And I was watching Peter Wadhams and Paul Beckwith the other day and Paul. I don't know if he's Mr. Carbon Capture, and I love Paul dearly. He's looking at solutions, different things. I'm going to have Dr. Tao Yi Tao as a guest also to talk about
Mhm.
the project they want to do with mirrors. And he is coming on. I have somebody helping me get get him
Cool.
on. And it will, I guess, yeah. You and I are not going to
But
stop
the thing,
this.
like, if you use, yeah, the thing with like mirrors, though, ask him this for me. If you have so many mirrors as you're
We'll come to the
directing,
show.
using mirrors to reflect light, then how are you going to get all the plants to grow? I mean, they're
There's
very
going to be a lot
light
of questions when
sensitive.
he comes on, but he's going to come on
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's going to explain everything to us. So, all right, let's
Okay.
see. This has been really this time is just gone. I've loved it. Any more questions? Let's see. All right. I don't know, William. Are you still here? We're because I think we pretty much. I think. All right, here, Matt. Are locusts going to make a comeback in North America? They're polluting the South. Do you know anything about locusts? He
No,
lives in New
I went
Zealand.
to, yeah, they're nasty,
And we've seen them, and we
invasion.
saw them, right, in Africa, right? Weren't there the locust invasions that were happening there in a couple of different countries? I don't know which
Uh,
countries.
Yeah, something turns those nice little grasshoppers into those big, ugly, mean locusts. I'm
Mm.
not sure what triggers it. It's not my line of specialty, but
Okay.
I do remember yeah,
One more
yeah.
question now,
I've seen them where
William. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
there was an invasion at my grandmother's when I was very young, and I remember driving down the road, and they were just and you could just hear them crunch, and they were just over
Sheesh.
everything. Ugh, it was
Yeesh.
just, yeah, not pleasant.
All right. I don't know if William's still with us, but he said, how does biocide affect the soil in and around frac sites? He lives in Louisiana. He's had a hell of a time. He's pretty much living in an area that is completely polluted, destroyed, and horrible. He's been a
Oh
very
man.
long time follower from the very beginning on Facebook. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
still here. I don't know if you know anything about biocide or any of the fracking compounds. I don't see
Uh,
that as
well,
being
yeah, no, that actually they don't, let the chemical compounds that they use actually, no one really knows what's in it. The Halliburton rule from the Bush administration.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
um,
The
I
Halliburton rule.
don't, um, everything about that I saw about the industry, I just found disturbing, whether it be their water sources or the spraying, or it's just bad news. I don't. The poor guy living in
He's
Louisiana.
had so many problems. I love him
I
so
can
much.
imagine. I can
And I
imagine.
mean, he's been with ECA, Environmental Coffee House, following from the very beginning. And my heart breaks. It really breaks for the things he's been through. But okay, well, this has been an amazing show. I could go on and on. I don't know if anybody has any more questions, but Jackie, I want you to come back. I know it's taken how
Well, tell
many
everyone I said
years?
hi. Jennifer too. She's such a
Yeah,
sweetie. Yeah,
she
I
is.
remember her story about how she was flying over the Arctic and it hit her. Like my
Yeah, just hit her.
pansy, yeah,
And
yeah.
she had to go
So
through that, which I suppose a lot of us, we're all at different stages. You're at acceptance, and I'm definitely at acceptance. I'm beyond acceptance. I don't bargain anymore. But even in acceptance, I still think that people are going to do what people are going to do to try to mitigate as much as they can. And then when I see scientists
Yeah.
like Peter Kalmus who got arrested in L.A. and all these. Like they had tons of police for four scientists that were chained to a Chase bank, and yet all these idiots were over there protesting Disney, and there was
Yeah.
hardly any
Yeah,
police
we had
protesting
at the
Disney. We
People's
live in fucking
at
Moronsville.
the People's Climate March in 2014, we had 500,000 people in New York City. I've never
Yeah.
seen it. It Were you there? It was
No,
amazing,
I
and
was
we got
working.
like 2 minutes on CNN. But if you know if 20 Trumpers want to protest wearing masks, there's a gazillion, they'll spend a half hour on it on MSNBC. But
Yeah.
so it's sad. It's really sad.
It
There's one last,
is.
yeah. There's one something you said brought this to mind. When I was, I think I was a junior, and I was taking a natural history class, and the professor, and this was a class with other future scientists, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
foresters, environmental chemists, the
Mm.
whole 9 yards. And he did this. This would have been 1979, 1980. He reviewed the paper. Wasn't Ravel. I forget which one. But the professor, he went over every single point in this major paper, and the paper was already like 15 years old. It was from the late
Wow.
60s, mid 60s,
Wow.
and it was devastating. He did all the graphs and drawing the clouds and everything, and there was only one conclusion that could be drawn from this, and that was, this is serious. And this was 1979, 1980. After the class, all the girls got together, and we were all like, "Oh my God, this is horrible! What are we going to do? We Something has to be done. We can't let
So we
this continue."
have
Yeah.
babies.
So,
Right.
well, I needed a ride home. My car was in the shop, so I went over to where all the boys were meeting, and I said, "Isn't this awful? This is horrible." And the leader, he turned to looked at me and said, "About what?" I was like, "Just what the professor told us."
Yeah.
And he just said, "Ah, that's a theory."
It's a
He was in
theory. Yeah,
denial, and he
that's
was a
that's it.
future forester. So that's another lesson for the girls out there. We got to work on the guys with the denial thing. So
I'm not working on any
the,
guys.
yeah, the blinders that they have on, which allow them to walk onto the battlefields,
Yeah,
does
you're
not
right.
serve us
You bring up that's a good point.
in yeah,
The
yeah.
denial is a
Three
big
boys in
thing.
the armed services. So yeah, yeah.
Gosh. Well, I want to thank you. And thank you, Kim, for moderating, and Matt for
Thank you,
moderating,
Kim.
and all of you that were here tonight. I'm not going to name everybody. We've gone over. I didn't do the toilet flush of the day. Do you know anything about our channel with that? Okay.
I've heard it, but I don't know what it's for.
It's to flush away something we don't like. So tell me
Oh,
something
okay.
you don't like in this whole thing, and I will flush it away before we go. We have to do the toilet flush of the day. It wouldn't be Environmental Coffee House. What don't you like?
What don't I like?
What do you want to flush away? We're
Beets.
gonna.
I don't like
Oh,
beets.
she doesn't like beets. I love beets, but we'll flush them away. All right, there we go. Bye, beets. Even though, guess what? I haven't.
Trumpsters. I don't. Yeah, Trumpsters. Let's get rid of Trumpsters.
Trumpsters. Yeah, let's get rid of
Yeah,
Trumpsters. Yeah, we try
yeah.
not to be political, but we can be anyway. All right,
Yeah.
guys. We love you. Thank you for coming so much. Jackie will be back.
Thank you for listening
Oh no, this went a lot
to me.
longer. It'd be so good, and there's so much more. No, okay, we'll end with no beats for Jackie, no soup for you. All right, guys. We
Thank you,
absolutely
everyone.
love you. All righty, let me get the Let me get it going. All right. Good night, sweethearts, all of you. We just love you. Now it's muted. All right. I got to do what I do at the end. Thank you, Jackie.
Oh, you're welcome, dear.
Yeah.
You do
I'm putting
awesome.
them up on the screen. All right,
Yeah.
let's get everything up on the screen. They all know because I like to put them up. I'm not muted? All right, well, we love you.